All right, if you're an architect working on B2B platforms, you know this challenge all too well. We're building these massive systems that have to serve tons of different customers, all on the same shared infrastructure. And let's be real, the single biggest, most important job we have, making absolutely sure that one customer's data is completely 100% invisible to another. So let's walk through the blueprint for getting this right from day one.
Here's our game plan. We're going to start by really nailing down the core challenge of multi-tenancy. Then we'll get into the foundational ideas of identity and isolation. After that, we'll look at 3 crucial security patterns, trace an API call from end to end to see it all in action, and then wrap it all up with the key takeaways you can bring to your very next design meeting.
So first up, let's talk about the multi-tenant challenge. Why is this so incredibly critical to get right?
I want you to just think about this for a second. In the systems you're building, could just one single vulnerability in your code lead to a total disaster, exposing the data of every single one of your clients? If the answer is even a maybe, well then we've got a serious architectural problem to solve.
You know, the best way to wrap your head around this whole thing is to imagine your platform is a big apartment building. The building itself, the foundation, the plumbing, the wiring, that's all your shared infrastructure. Now, each of your customers is like a family living in their own private apartment. They all share the building, but you better believe they expect and they demand total privacy and security once they're inside their own 4 walls.
Okay, so how do we actually build those secure walls? Before we jump into the architecture, we've got to understand the fundamental building blocks that make it all possible: identity and isolation.
First, let's just be crystal clear on what we mean by multi-tenancy. It's really simple. One piece of software serving lots of different customers. One apartment building, many families. And the golden rule, the non-negotiable principle, is that every tenant's stuff has to stay completely separate and invisible to everybody else. Period. No exceptions.
So, how do we enforce that rule? It all starts with a key. In our world, that key is a JSON Web Token, or JWT. Think of it as a secure digital key card. It doesn't just say who you are, it critically says which apartment, which tenant you belong to. It's the thing that lets you into your unit and keeps you out of everyone else's.
All right, we've got the basic concepts down. Now, let's get practical. This is your toolkit, the essential security patterns you need to build a truly resilient system.
We can really boil this down to a 3-step process. First, we have to enforce that tenant isolation we talked about. Second, we need to implement smart rate limiting. And third, we absolutely should be using per-tenant keys. Let's break down what each of those really means.
Tenant isolation. This is all about building the walls of the apartment. Now, this could be a logical separation like a tenant ID column in a shared database, or you could go for a full physical separation with different databases for each tenant. Honestly, the how isn't as important as the what, and the what is simple: prevent any data from ever leaking between tenants. This is truly the bedrock of everything we're doing. Next up, every good building needs rules. That's what smart rate limiting is. It makes sure that one tenant, maybe the one in the penthouse throwing a massive party, can't use up all the shared resources, like the building's Wi-Fi or all the hot water. It protects the whole system from attacks and just ensures a stable, fair experience for everybody.
And finally, we have the unique locks on each door. Using per-tenant keys means every single apartment has its own unique lock and key. And this is so powerful because it contains risk. Think about it. If one tenant's key gets stolen, the thief can only get into their apartment. They can't use it to open any other door in the building. This is what we mean when we talk about reducing the blast radius of a breach. It's a game changer.
Okay, we've got the concepts, we've got the patterns, now let's put it all together. Let's trace a secure API call from the moment a user logs in to the moment they get their data.
It all comes back to our digital key, the JWT. You've got a header, you've got a signature at the end to make sure no one's messed with it, but for us, the real magic is right there in the middle, the payload. Inside the payload are what we call claims, and the single most important claim in any multi-tenant system is the tenant ID. This is the undeniable, unchangeable piece of data that says this user belongs to Acme Corp.
So here is how that journey plays out. Step 1. A user from Acme Corp logs in. They get their key, that JWT with their tenant ID locked inside. Step 2. They make an API call and they present that key. Step 3. Your API gateway acts like the doorman of the building. It checks the key's signature to make sure it's legit, and then, and this is the crucial part, it reads the tenant ID. And finally, step 4, Based on that ID, and only that ID, it sends the request to the specific part of your system that belongs to Acme Corp. The user only ever gets access to their own apartment.
Okay, let's bring this all home. If you take anything away from this, let it be these core principles. This is your cheat sheet for your next design review.
These are the non-negotiables. First, never, ever, ever trust the client. Always validate your tokens on the server side. Second, the tenant ID can't be some optional thing you pass around. It has to be an unchangeable part of the security token itself. Third, think isolation everywhere. Isolate the data, isolate the keys, and isolate the resources with rate limiting. And finally, design for failure. Just assume a breach is going to happen someday and architect your system so that if one tenant is compromised, it absolutely cannot cascade to any others.
And that brings us to the final question. You know, building a secure system is one thing, but as architects, our real job is to see around corners. Your architecture might be perfectly secure for the 10 customers you have today, but is it designed to be just as secure, just as resilient when you have 10,000? Answering that question, well, that's what separates a good design from a great one.